Hi, thanks for joining me. So, today I'm going to do a Japanese Dreamcast pickups video. And it's been years since I've done one of these. So I'd like to give you guys a little bit of an intro because of that. Just to let you know why. And for myself to just firm up, I guess, why I'm making one of these videos again. Now, these games I picked up probably over 3 years ago now. So they're not exactly pickups. They're games in my collection at this point. But I haven't played them, and I haven't talked about them, as I've been doing in these videos, at least years ago when I started this series. And a lot of things have changed since then for me. And I'm in a spot in my life where, you know, I guess I'm trying to reevaluate, like, what my life means to me at this juncture. Because of that, I think one of the things you do is you let go of some things, you know, and that can feel really good. You know, every so often we need to stop doing something. You know, we need to drop things. We need to get rid of possessions, etc. But the other day I watched all of my Japanese Dreamcast pickups videos, and I like them. I know why I started doing them. I started doing them because I wanted to play the games that I was getting, and you know, the Dreamcast is a cool system. I really like it. I liked it back in the day, and I got a full North American Dreamcast collection. And to complement that, I made a list of Japanese games I was interested in, and I started getting them, and I started playing them, even just to check them out. 10-15 minutes, half an hour, something along those lines. And I wanted to share that with you guys. So this is my first video in my new self. You know, this is my 3-year later self, or however long it's been, going, hey, is this still a part of my life? So thank you for joining me for this, and let's take a look at these games. First up, we have Izumo. This comes in a nice cardboard case. As far as I know, this is not a special edition. Maybe if I have more information about that, I'll add it when we take a look at the gameplay. But yeah, let's take a look. So as we can see, this is brought to us by Symbio Planning and Studio Ego. Now this is just my assumption, but I assume that Symbio Planning handled the port to the Dreamcast, where Studio Ego seems to have developed a bunch of these sort of romantic adventure visual novel style games for the PC. Izumo here being one of them. Castle Fantasia is another one of the games that I spoke about in my Japanese Dreamcast pickups number 9. Now, Izumo actually went on to become a series, the second of which was released around 6 months after this Dreamcast port, and the fourth of which, most recently, was just released a few years ago in 2015. So here we can see this mysterious woman bathed in moonlight. She seems to be like communing with the gods, and you speak out to her, and she's like, "Who's there?" And you're going to say who you are, but then something happens. What could this possibly be? Has this happened in pretty much every single pickups video in some random romantic adventure game or another? Rustle, rustle. Brother, wake up. So you're having a dream, and you're woken up by your sister. This just, it's so cliche at this point. I think it's kind of like a running gag. It must be in these games. So you're calling out, you're like, please don't go, this is what you said to that girl originally. So this sets up this mystery. You're having some sort of dream. But this goes on to, you know, a relatively comical situation here in the morning. You know, it's fairly mundane. Your sister's like, oh, you're going to be late for school. You run into your dad, and you get a choice. You know, so we have our normal choice segments. Your sister's complaining that you were staying up late watching television and it was too loud, and stuff. So, you know, it seems like a fun little intro. This is probably a decent one of these games, but, you know, it's hard to tell so far. Next up, we have Shikigami no Shiro, which is the Castle of Shikigami, Shikigami no Shiro 2. These are shoot-em-ups by Alpha System. And this is a special edition, a limited edition, so let's take a look. I kind of like a lot of the Dreamcast limited editions. Some of them are crazy. We've already looked at some crazy ones. But some of them are simple. This one's a simpler one, I think. So we've got, again, a cardboard sleeve, kind of like the game we just looked at. We have the game itself with a spine card. And then we have this, which I'm assuming is the limited edition bonus. This is a special soundtrack. So this is like the Dreamcast something songs. And then we've got some cards. It's got these some collectible trading cards. I don't think I'll be opening them, but that's pretty cool. And our CD soundtrack. I'll have to give that a listen. So this shoot 'em up is developed by Alpha System, and a quick search on GameFAQs reveals that Alpha System is behind a number of games that I am quite fond of, including some light gun shooters such as Project Horned Owl and Elemental Gearbolt, as well as the Gun Parade March / Orchestra series. Other people may be familiar with them from the Japanese-only, somewhat bizarre Linda Cubed series. But of course, they are also known for the Shikigami no Shiro, or Castle of Shikigami series. This being the second in the series, it was ported to a lot of contemporary systems of the Dreamcast, including the PlayStation 2, the GameCube, the Xbox, pretty much all of the major platforms at the time. The series has gone on to a third entry. The most recent was released on the Wii as of 2007, so, you know, a number of years ago at this point. But these are relatively interesting shoot-em-ups. I believe I've been conditioned a bit by Psycho's shooters to expect shoot-em-ups to be quite challenging, so when presented with the option to play this on easy mode, that is what I chose. But actually, I think I should have probably played this on normal, because this felt a little bit easy. But getting used to the controls here, you can see I chose this character due to his attack patterns seeming fairly forgiving. This attack you actually perform by spinning the D-pad. I mean, possibly the analog stick. It took me a little while to get used to the just the physical motion of that. But this seems like a fairly cool shoot-em-up. I haven't gotten very far, obviously. I just checked this out for a few minutes. Aside from it being a little easy, for me, I think I would turn the difficulty up just a bit at this point. It looks pretty cool. It reminds me a little bit of Caladrius Blaze. Next up, it's Marionette Company. We took a look at the second game in this series, Marionette Company 2, in a previous video. But today we have the first game. So this is, of course, also developed by Microcabin, and we covered the second game in my Japanese Dreamcast pickups with gameplay number 4, so that was quite a while ago. But this game, I actually rather appreciate how it starts off much differently from the somewhat cliched opening of the second game, where we're in high school and we wake up from a dream, and we're asked to assist with these marionettes that were discovered in the basement of the school. Marionettes in this sort of near-future storyline being these humanoid robots that people build and are sold and owned by people. In this one, we start off as a young man who is a member of the workforce, so, you know, we're not in school, and we actually are going back to visit someone who it turns out is a friend of your mother's. So it seems as though we're establishing some backstory that perhaps your parents have passed away. At the very least, you know, it seems like your mother's not around, and this woman has been, you know, kind of taking care of you, maybe on and off. And she expresses some concern about, you know, what you're doing for work, and it seems like you're kind of just getting by and kind of making ends meet. And she's like, oh, but, you know, you have this talent for marionettes. And so you're in this part of town. It's sort of like the marionette district, I guess. And you end up finding this marionette in this box. She's actually asking for help. She's calling out, please help me. And so here we go back to visit Yuki again. It's like, oh, what's wrong? What are you doing here this time of night? It's like, oh, it's you. So yeah, so apparently this woman is also you know, fairly knows something about these humanoid robots, and so the two of you together fix up this broken marionette that you found. It's quite similar to the, you know, opening of the second game, but like I said, I really like how this one plays out. It's a little more melancholy. I think it's a little more interesting, less cliched, and you know, I'm curious how these games are. They seem like straight up adventure games. I don't know that they have any sort of a raising element to them, but I'm pretty curious to see how this goes. Next up, it's DeSPIRIA, published by Atlus. So I have a confession to make, and that is that I am almost completely unfamiliar with Atlus's staple developed games. It seems like, aside from being essentially a contracted developer, Atlus is mostly known for their Megami Tensei, Shin Megami Tensei, Persona series, that whole sort of dark fantasy, somewhat modern day series of like RPGs and dungeon crawling RPGs, sort of in various incarnations. I think there's a strategy RPG on the Super Famicom, things of that nature. So, you know, I look at a game like this, which appears to have been developed by Atlus, and I kind of wish that maybe something like this had come out in North America for the Dreamcast. This seems really interesting. It's very dark, sort of dark, odd, like unsettling science fiction. Well, we're gonna see here. This woman like snorts a worm. It's odd, you know. It seems like it might have elements of body horror and just horror elements to it, which I appreciate. I think I would have enjoyed this quite a lot. This game, it's called an RPG, and you actually gain experience as you do things, but so far it plays more like an adventure game. More specifically, it actually reminds me a bit of Myst. And I would say mostly because of the way that it's all pre-rendered 3D. I don't know if I'm going to cut in some footage of it, but suffice to say later on you actually see movement. It really is like Myst. You essentially point and click and move to that location. But it's not that different from other games that we've seen on the Dreamcast that also include some sort of point-and-click adventure game elements to them. And this apparently includes some RPG elements to it as well. So it seems very interesting. You have this character who was riding on the subway. We're in some kind of post-apocalyptic world, and it seems like every person is an element of some sort of faction. It seems like there are all these factions in the city, you know, it's like the east side and the west side, and the, you know, but seriously, like that kind of thing. There's a kind of, maybe a little bit of cyberpunk, these sort of cyberpunk gangs and things like that. And it seems that this woman is able to use something called mind. She's a mind user. So I take a little while to you know, get used to the controls, but like I said, this is a point-and-click adventure for the most part. So you're able to look around in these environments. You're able to choose locations to investigate. You're able to find items. I assume at some point it's possible there's some kind of combat system, but I have a feeling that this is more a game of investigation. You have a mission that the character talks about, but I think there's something weird, like she doesn't know who her mission target is. And I think that the subway crashes before she's able to find that out. But as you meet characters, you're actually able to dive into their consciousnesses somewhat, which is interesting. You get these flashes of words and things that come up. And as far as these kinds of games go, most of these games that I'm talking about have, you're lucky if there's maybe 1 or 2 videos that come up in a search on YouTube. But this game seems to have caught the attention of at least some segment of people posting videos to English language YouTube, because there are a number of playthroughs of this game. So I think that that's very interesting as well. And finally, we have the limited edition of Mizuro. My assumption is that this is a romantic visual novel, or a romantic adventure game, as we call them. Not necessarily visual novels. I feel like that refers to something relatively specific. Some of these Dreamcast games, I would say, are technically what I would call visual novels, and some of them are more just Japanese adventure games. So again, we have the box. That's the back of it. And it has a slip case, as several of these have. So there's just a white cardboard box inside. Okay. So I have no idea what's in here, but it seems not, it's not a ton of things that I see so far. But we have this. It is, I'm assuming, like a cat food can. I don't think there's anything in it, although maybe there's something light, perhaps. So this is, because it says Neko. Neko, there's a little cat girl on there. I'll look up what this is a little bit more, take a look at the package. And here, let me show you guys what I'm looking at. Let's see where the can was. We've got the game, and then we've got, it looks like a card. And this strikes me, because I've seen them before, as a telephone card. In fact, it even comes in the little plastic sleeve that telephone cards specifically do. Has a slightly opaque, it's a little translucent, but I guess it's more opaque back. And I'll take it out. It's got the phone. I'm sure this actually, well, let's say this probably would work to make telephone calls, but I don't know. I don't quite know how that works, but it probably would have anyway back in the 90s or whenever this came out, 2002. And finally, we have the game itself, which is actually still new in the wrapper. It has never been opened, but we will change that and take a look at the game. So the name of this game is apparently Light Blue, and the developer Nekosoft, I hadn't heard of them before, but they seem to enjoy this type of naming scheme. Their first game was called White, their second game was called Giniro, which is silver, and they have another game called Aka, another one called Scarlet, so they seem to be very keen on the color-themed names. But they are still developing games of this sort to this day. This game starts off a little bit poetic. You have this, sort of sad piano theme, which I don't dislike. I tend to actually rather enjoy these. So they go through the seasons. It's summer. Well, they start off at winter. It's winter, it's spring, it's summer. It's summer vacation. Then it's fall, and my parents, buy me a sweater, and then it's winter again. And this seems to be I don't know if it's a flashback right now, but there's a scene coming up where you talk to your sister, and I don't know what it is with these games having to do with sisters. It seems to be a popular theme. But you're talking with your sister, and she's like, "Oh, there's this thing coming on TV. It looks really interesting. Do you want to watch it together?" And they're like, "Oh, sure, yeah." But we get this flashback, and it seems like you're meeting your sister for the first time. And we've seen this in at least one or two other games, just in this series, this Dreamcast series that I've been doing, where it seems like your sister is introduced into your family. Maybe her mother passed away is what seems to be the implication, because she's very sad. She cries a lot when she first, your father first introduces you to her, and you don't like her very much. But when she's crying and she's sad, and you try to cheer her up, and you give her your favorite sticker, and you're just like a little kid, you don't have very much allowance, and you're like, oh, here, you can have some of my chocolate, and eventually, it almost chronicles like this awakening of a certain amount of empathy in you. You realize that this girl is really suffering, and so you're like, well, here's a postcard. You've got like some crayons or something. You're like, why don't you write a letter to your mom? Because she just wants to go back home. She wants to see her mom again. And in light blue crayon, she draws a picture of her smiling. I don't know if it's her mom smiling. I think it was her. She wants to send it to her mom, and so come to find out, you're just a kid, but you're trying to send this postcard for this girl that's your sister now, and so you're finding out that that postcard is probably not gonna reach anyone. There's no home for her to go back to. So that's the start of this game, and from what I read, you actually you meet a variety of other characters. So you have kind of the classic characters. You've got a childhood friend character and things like that, but you go through the game sort of in your childhood, and then that branches the story into sort of routes that will actually take you into the present, which I think is pretty interesting. This was originally, of course, a PC game, and there were some love scenes and things like that in it that have all been deleted for the Dreamcast version. I believe there was also a PlayStation 2 version as well. So in place of those scenes, they added some other CG. I think they added another route, things like that. So this is sort of an enhanced edition, minus some of the content that, of course, you would find in the PC versions. But yeah, this seems like a sweet game. I don't know if I'm gonna, choose this one to play out of the myriad other games that we've covered so far that have a similar theme. But it certainly seems nice, and I'm curious to know about this developer, Nekosoft. What kind of stuff they've done. Maybe this is a good game, maybe this is a good developer. But anyway, those are my Japanese Dreamcast pickups, so to speak. Hope that you've enjoyed this. Like I said, it's been quite a long time since I've done one of these, so if you like this, let me know. Thumb it up, leave a comment. I have enough games right now to keep doing this for a number of videos more. Maybe at some point I'll be in a position where I can start collecting for the Dreamcast again, and you can see more of these. So that's all. Thank you for joining me, and hope you'll join me again. Take care.